What if the next breath you take could be your last? You jolt awake on a lumpy straw mattress, coughing on wood smoke that sneaks through the thatch roof. Dawn's grey light leaks in, revealing a one-room cottage no bigger than a modern garage. Your blanket is a matted sheepskin, your pillow a bundled tunic that still smells of yesterday's sweat. Somewhere outside, a rooster croaks like rusty hinges, and church bells toll prime, your only clock. You sit up, dirt floor, low rafters blackened by years of hearth soot. Beside the fire pit, a clay cup of yesterday's weak ale replaces the coffee you wish existed. Breakfast is rye bread so hard, you knock it on the table first, chasing crumbs with tepid onion broth. No forks, just fingers. No privacy, either your younger brother snores an arm's length away, your mother is already at the spindle, twisting wool by the doorway. Step outside and cold mud oozes between your toe shoes are for feast days. Around you the village of 30 huts stirs. A swineherd drives grunting pigs toward the commons. Women scoop water from a pond where ducks paddle and latrine runoff drifts upstream. Over it all looms the manor house on a gentle rise, timbered and smug. You are a villain, owing 3 days' labour a week to Lord Alain in exchange for this patch of land and protection. Refuse, and his reeve can seize your Oxia-only tractor or worse, your freedom. Yet life here isn't unbroken misery. Feast of St. Martin is next week, a rare night of dancing, ale and pardons for late rents. Gossip says the tanner's daughter may wed the miller's apprentice, which could merge two families' strip fields into a respectable half-yardland. For now, routine rules every breath. Sunrise to sunset, plough to pillow, sin to confession. It's predictable, comforting, even. So when a travelling minstrel paused by the crossroads yesterday, muttering about a shadow on the sea, you shrugged it off. Old men are always predicting Judgment Day. Besides, your lord worries more about the price of wool than prophecies from Italy or Cathay. But as you heft a wooden yoke across your shoulders and trudge toward the fields, a black speck skitters over your bare ankle just. A flea, you think, and flick it away. Church bells fade behind you, wind rustles the barley, and another ordinary morning begins. And yet, as routine as it feels, an invisible stowaway has already boarded the continent. By mid-morning, the dirt lane outside your hut rattles with foreign bells. A pack-horse train appears, panniers stuffed with Genoese glass beads, Persian damask, and a stink of seawater. In the saddle sits Matteo the merchant, normally all toothy grins. Today his lips are thin as candlewick. He dismounts, rolls his shoulders, then lowers his voice. Trade's dying, he mutters, untying a salt-spattered map. His gloved finger lands on Sicily. Messina galleys adrift, crews dead. Venice next. They torch the corpses on the docks, but the smoke just follows the ships. Villagers cluster like sheep. Father Hugo urges a hymn. The smith laughs into his ale. Your mother clutches her rosary so hard the beads creak. Matteo keeps talking. Egg. Sized swellings. Lungs filling with black blood. 3 days from prayer to pyre. He smells of cloves, as though spice might bribe death itself. By sunset, rumour outruns the horses that carried it. In the alehouse, you hear wilder tales. Tartars flinging plague. Bodies over Crimean walls. Florentines paying alchemists to curse rival ports. A fiery comet spotted last Lent, surely heaven's warning. Lord Alain's steward scoffs, yet orders the gate chained and the ditch scoured. Fear and mockery now drink from the same cup. Come dawn, parchment edicts arrive from the Shire town. Foreigners confined outside the walls, vagrants whipped from bridges, Jewish money changers questioned about poisoned wells. Ink barely dries before tongues sharpen them into weapons. You taste iron in your spit. Still, the barley must be threshed, the tithe delivered. But every south wind carries a sour, note-overripe apples, left too long in the sun. Matteo is already gone, urging his caravan north, but his whispers stick to the village like burrs on wool. Night falls early, frost dusts the thatch. Around hearths, murmurs fatten into murmurs, then into low roars. A child coughs behind the partition, and everyone stops breathing, though stories turn into screams. 3 days after Matteo vanished down the frost-glazed road, the mill wheel is silent. No creak, no splashingly crows squabbling over the grain spilled on the sluice boards. You and 2 neighbours push open the warped door and find Etienne, the mill assistant, slumped against the sack piles. His neck bulges with a purple lump the size of a hen's egg. He tries to speak, but his tongue is brick red and cracked. Breath rattles like wet parchment. A sour, apple rot smell hangs around him. By noon, the village physician, really just the barber, with extra lancets arrives. He fingers his rosary, slices the swelling, and recoils as tar-black pus oozes out. "God's judgment," he whispers, wiping his blade on straw. Etienne's fever climbs until sunset. At prime he was hauling sacks, at vespers he is a corpse. Less than 1 full turn of the church bell. The next dawn, his widow coughs pink foam into her apron. Unlike Etienne, no bubo marks her. The enemy has moved to her lungs. She lasts 30 hours, every exhale a crimson mist. Villagers trade looks of raw terror. Touch a victim and swellings bloom, breathe their air, and you drown from the inside. Patterns emerge with merciless precision. Day 0, perfectly healthy. Maybe a flea bite nobody recalls. Day 1, chills so violent teeth snap. Thighs ache like hammered iron. Day 2, groin or armpit swells, skin darkens to bruise, black, heartbeat drums in the ears. Day 3, delirium, foul breath, bleeding under the skin. Day 4, a silence deeper than sleep. The priest rings the passing bell so often the clapper splits. Gravediggers smear garlic on their beards, claim it filters bad airs, then collapse beside the pits they open. Mothers refuse to kiss fevers away. Doors are barred even against cousins. Smoke from burn piles drifts over the thawing fields, turning sunrise the colour of drying blood. At the manor, Lord Elaine orders hedges cut, ditches widened, and every approach watched. Yet whispers leak through the gaps. Sailors, comets, Jews, cats, even warm southern winds someone must be to blame. Fear sharpens into accusation, and accusation hungers for flesh. Blame will carve deeper wounds. The hammering of coffin makers is soon drowned by drums. A ragged procession of flagellants tramps in from the next valleyman, stripped to the waist, backs latticed with fresh lashes. For every step they chant Miserere Mei Deus, then bring the knotted cords down again, blood spattering the snow like rose petals. Villagers kneel. You're pulled to your feet and shoved into line. Pain draws God's eye, insists Father Hugo, eyes fever, bright. And his eye must turn here. Not everyone buys the heavenly ledger theory. The midwife swears the air itself has soured. She stuffs your pockets with wilted posies, orders you to hold them beneath your nose. Herbs and petals, she says, trap the miasma. By dusk, the whole hamlet smells like a turned-over apothecary. Lavender, wormwood, vinegar, smoke. People light foul-smelling fires of pitch and rue, convinced thick fumes can chase away thinner, deadlier ones. But fear always thirsts for a human culprit. A rumour starts that the Jewish moneylender kept drawing clean well water, while Christian children cough blood. One torchlit night, the steward unlocks the manor storehouse, passes out spears. You hear glass break, then choking screams. By dawn, charred beams protrude from the lender's house like blackened ribs. Those who fled are marched towards Strasbourg in chains. No proof is offered, only the echoing refrain. They poisoned the wells. You notice the mill assistant's house empty since his death also sits on that waterline, but nobody wants arithmetic tonight. Weeks bleed together. The plague now wears 2 masks. One stalks in fleas, swelling groins and armpits. The other rides breath itself, needing no rat or bite, just a cough in a cold room. Your neighbour drops 3 sons in 4 days, each to a different form. From a perch centuries away, scientists will name the enemy Yersinia pestis, chart its pathways from rodent burrows in the Tian Shan to every churchyard in Europe. They will find its DNA in the gums of skulls and the gut of fleas, and they will argue over climate, trade winds, even medieval gerbils. None of that helps you now, because tonight, amid the smoke of rue and burning houses, one maddening fact curls around your thoughts. Some people nurse the dying, breathe the same fetid air, and still wake healthy. You watch a carpenter, whose wife was buried this morning, hammer planks unfazed, pink as a midsummer rose, yet a lucky few seem untouchable how? 2 months in, the dead outnumber the living. Yet your kid brother Martin still leaps barefoot across the churchyard, rosy and unstoppable. He nursed mother through her fever, shared her straw pillow, even helped lash the shroud. All he carries away is a thumbprint scar on his forearm, dark and smooth as river glass. The priest calls it grace. The barber mutters, thick blood. Centuries later, fluorescence and gene sequencers will name it something colder. CCR5, 32. Here's the quirker 32-letter deletion in a white blood cell doorway that Yersinia pestis must pick to enter. When the lock is missing, the bacterium fumbles and dies on the stoop. 1 copy buys you time. 2 copies make you nearly untouchable. By freak luck, perhaps 1 in 10 northerners carries at least half the shield, a genetic IOU written by ancestors who scraped through earlier plagues. Modern scientists sift medieval teeth and see the numbers spike right after 1,350. The Black Death didn't just cull bodies, it rewired Europe's immune deck, stacking it with this rare trump card. Spin the globe to the 1980s researchers puzzling over AIDS discover the very same mutation slams the door on HIV. A 14th century bloodbath forged a 21st century firewall. Back in your village, no one speaks of alleles or receptors. They see only cruel arithmetic. A lord's daughter turns black within hours, while the tanner's ragged apprentice whistles through his chores. Envy brews, edged with superstition. Whispers claim the spared ones bought charms from Moorish sailors, or sip nightshade tea, or worse traffic with demons. Someone suggests bleeding the blessed to share the invincible humour. That night, you watch Martin sleep, chest lifting in calm rhythm, and feel the room tilt between gratitude and dread. How long before fear decides his miracle is a crime? But even if his blood holds a winning ticket, empty granaries still gape in silent Belfriesrust. Winter peels away, and for the first time in months, the churchyard is quiet enough to hear birdsong instead of shovels. You'd think that means salvation, but it really means scarcity. The fields lie fallow. The oxboy is buried beneath them. Every survivor now owns 2 empty seats at the table and twice the land to tilly at half the hands to work it. The math terrifies the lords. Sir Guillaume, once too grand to nod at a peasant, rides door to door with a purse of silver pennies clinking like wind chimes. 3 pence a day and a rasher of bacon if you'll plough my south ridge, he begs. Last spring he paid 1. You weigh the offer, let him sweat, then ask for 5 and seed grain. He concedes before you finish the sentence. Overnight, the unfree learn a dangerous new word, leverage. Word travels faster than the plague ever did. In taverns that still pour ale, serfs compare bids like merchants haggling saffron. A mason's widow gathers her skirts, straps on her dead husband's tool belt, and repairs the town gate for double wage. Nobody dares call it improper when the alternative is leaving walls in ruin. Even the monastery hires village girls to illuminate manuscripts because no brothers remain steady of hand. Ink-stained fingers replace rosaries. The church itself limps. Father Hugo succumbed after Easter. His replacement arrives from 3 parishes away, gaunt and shaking, muttering Latin through missing teeth. People start asking why God spared the butcher's drunkard but not the bishop. Tithes shrivel. Pilgrims bypass relics that fail to ward off pestilence, choosing instead the surety of a full granary or a lord's glittering coin. The pulpit, once a thunderclap, becomes an echo. Yet friction builds beneath the newfound freedom. In France, messengers whisper of the Jacquerie peasants, hoisting flails against armoured knights, screaming that no man should sweat for another's feast. Across the Channel, English labourers mumble the same creed. A Kentish tax collector is found stuffed headfirst in his own coffer. You feel the ground tremor, as if society's great millstone has slipped its axle and could crush anyone standing in the wrong place. One dusk, you and Martin sit on a fallen boundary stone, chewing bacon bought with Sir Guillaume's desperate money. The horizon glows from a manor set alight miles away, no accident, the rumours say. Smoke spirals into a bruised sky like a question mark no priest can answer. The plague scythed bodies, now its shadow scythes the old order. 4 years crawl by. From Galway to Constantinople, the bells toll so often they rust in mid-swing, then fall silent for lack of hands to pull them. Scholars centuries later will argue whether 75 or 200 million breaths were stolen. To you it feels like the world lost half its sentences and now speaks in echoes. Empty cottages, cave, thatch, sinking into nettles. Wolves pad through once tended orchards, saplings spear up between church pews. On clear mornings, you can trace the plague's journey the way a sailor reads stars. Genoa's piers choked with weeds, the Rhone Valley littered with sun-bleached carts, London's riverfront a necklace of ash. A cartographer could ink the devastation in 3 strokesy lanes, trade roads, pilgrimage trails arteries that pumped progress and poison in the same beat. Yet absence becomes opportunity. Fallow acres tempt the bold. You and Martin claim a deserted hamlet and its spring-fed mill. No steward arrives to object the rots beneath his escutcheon. Grain that once paid a baron's banquet now buys roof tiles. Parchment, a second mule. Across Europe, the pattern repeats. Villains shrug off forgotten oaths, bargain as free tenants, or vanish into towns where coin outshouts lineage. Feudal gears grind on sand. With labour dear, mines hunt shortcuts. Water wheels sprout extra paddles. Windmills trade cloth sails for hinged boards. A German metalsmith mutters about movable type to save on scribes who died unshriven. In Venice, anxious magistrates study plague-ship ledgers and decree 40 days isolation quaranta, Journecoining quarantine, along with a crude public health board. What began as terror hardens into protocol. The church, bruised but breathing, convenes councils to explain why so many prayers went unanswered. Some clerics blame distant planets, others whisper reform. Seeds scatter that will flower into Hussites, Lutherans, humanist names, unborn, but already stirring beneath the soil. Not even the forest's quiet can hide the demographic hole. Villagers post hand-painted pleas on crossroads. 2 carpenters needed meat twice weekly. Women inherit shops, children plough as soon as they can shoulder a yoke, widowers remarry before candles on the first grave gutter. Demographers you'll never meet will note that Europe will not reclaim 1,347's headcount until Shakespeare's grandparents are swaddled. And still, when dusk settles, an unease hovers like ground fog. You wake one dawn and realise whole calendars have slipped past while you were busy staying alive. The millstones turn, the market chatters, but every motion carries a question the old world never asked. Why? Why should a farmer bow to armour? A widow hide her ledger? A prayer outrank a plan? A germ smaller than a grain of dust exposed the scaffolding of power, then yanked it away and the sky did not fall. Look around. Feudal dues are now negotiated, not demanded. A dusty friar in Avignon hints that scripture might read differently if copied by common hands. Somewhere in Mainz, metal letters click into a frame, ready to multiply ideas as fast as fleas once multiplied death. Port cities guard their harbours with ledgers of arrivals and a new ritual exequaranta journey that treats disease as a puzzle, not a punishment. The catastrophe that halved Europe also doubled its possibilities. Modern eyes know the culprit. Yersinia pestis riding rat fleas, thwarted only when a random mutation CCR5 3032 shut the cellular door. But the bigger twist is cultural, not cellular. By killing indiscriminately, the plague taught survivors to question every inherited certainty. Authority must earn its keep. Knowledge can travel faster than caravans. Even invisible threats can be measured, managed, maybe mastered. Those lessons will echo through printing presses, microscopes, and 6 centuries later, PCR machines chasing a different crown-shaped killer. So, if you truly woke up in 1347, how would you survive? You'd start with the obvious. Flee the ports, avoid the rats, burn sweet herbs, keep your distance. Yet your real edge would be perspective. You know that disaster is not an ending, but a hinge. While others chant litanies, you'd tally grain stores. While flagellants bleed in the square, you'd scout abandoned workshops. Survival is foresight with muddy boots. And when the bells finally rust silent, you'd face a blank page vast as the ruin. Will you rebuild the manor? Or draft a charter? Replant the commons or invent something no chronicler can yet name? History shows that microbes redraw the map. Humans decide what to write in the margins. If a single bacterium could rewrite half the story of Europe, which microbe are lurking in ice cores, rainforest bats, or a petri dish waits to turn the page on us? Type your battle plan below. Barricade, bug out, or biohack. And tap subscribe, because tomorrow we journey to Ayam, 1665, the village that saw the next plague coming and chose to lock itself in. Night settles on your reclaimed hamlet, but the dark no longer frightens you. It intrigues you. Somewhere out there is the next invisible invader, already rehearsing its entrance. You sharpen a quill beside the hearth and sketch 2 columns on scrap parchment. Things we can't see versus things we can control. The first list is infinite fleas, spores, cosmic dust. The second feels laughably short clean water. Fresh air. Open eyes yet, you realise that's enough to tilt the odds. A knock rattles the doorframe. It's the peddler who once traded rumour for salt. He offers a tin charm stamped with an unfamiliar crest. Crossed keys encircled by the word quarantina. Venice swears it wards off fever, he hisses, half believing his own pitch. You buy it not for magic, but as a reminder that policy can be forged into talisman. Hang it by the window. Let the sun glint off the metal. Each flash whispers, observe, prepare, adapt. Your neighbour Beatrice arrives with a different treasure, a parchment leaflet copied from those experimental metal letters in Mainz. It outlines a 4-point sanitation codedispose of refuse beyond the ditch. Boil linens, seal grain bins, rotate sleeping pallets. Simple, almost obvious, yet revolutionary in a world that still calls illness divine wrath. You tack it beside the charm. Knowledge and habit steal, and in care your new patron saints. Outside, the road that once carted corpses now bears merchants, pilgrims, tinkers. They trade not only goods but information. A Genoese sailor swears rats vanish when cats are fed. A Breton monk insists certain herbs repel fleas. A Moorish physician sketches lung diagrams. No European university has yet dared imagine. You gather each scrap like kindling, because the next firestorm will need fuel of a different sort ideas. Before sleep, you climb the hill, where the old bell lies cracked among thistles. The moonlight pools in its rusted cup, mirroring the sky. For a moment, you see 2 constellations. The familiar stars above, and the faint scatter of campfires on distant slopes other survivors, drawing their own maps of what comes next. Somewhere beyond that horizon, a Derbyshire village called Ayam will one day choose to wall itself in rather than spread a scourge. Their story waits like a sealed letter. You lower your gaze and feel the night press close, not menacing, but expectant. History, like the bell, is ready to be struck again. Will the sound be warning or anthem? The answer hangs in the hush just before dawn. Dawn cracks like flint on steel, and you're already on the road, parchment, shovel, and a head full of questions strapped to the same satchel. Word has reached your hamlet that Venice now posts armed guards at the lagoon gates. 40 days in the outer Marcia Squaranta journey before any crew may touch a cobbled quay. 40 days between trade and trust. You want to see the rule born, to watch an idea push back against a microbe the eye cannot find. The journey south is a patchwork of half-healed Europe. In one village, you pass a church whose stained glass saints have been pried out and sold for bread. In the next, masons chip fresh gargoyles grimacing Razzonto, a new bell tower financed by a wool guild, suddenly rich from shortage. Everywhere, power is a moving target. Clerics barter indulgences for grain. Nobles rent empty pasture to anyone who can swing a scythe. You take notes, not souvenirs. Near Ferrara, the River Po runs sullen and swollen, famous for ferrying death upriver 3 winters ago. A ferryman tells you it also carried life back downstream. barges of surplus rye from untouched hamlets in the Apennines. When the belly's filled, the fevers fell, he shrugs. Logistics, not litanies. Another line in your ledger of lessons. 2 days later, the salt tang of the Adriatic pricks your nose. Venice rises like a mirage of stone and willpower. Yet, even here, the plague's fingerprint lingers. Black X's still fade on shuttered doors. A half-sunk gondola moulds beside a pier, rope gnawed by rats long dead. At the Lazaretto Vecchiote Exile Isle, you glimpse the experiment in progress. Sailors pace behind rope lines, counting 40 dawns, while monks slide meals across planks. No incense, no relics, just distance and time. A grey-robed physician notices your interest. His mask lacks the bird beak of later icon. It's merely linen soaked in rosemary. Observe, he says, eyes sharp. We weigh fear against commerce. If the scales tip wrong, the city starves. If we open too soon, it drowns. He invites you to watch an autopsy at dusk evidence, he claims, that the lungs, not curses, kill quickest. Your pulse jumps, proof, dissected. That night, inside a candlelit ward, you witness what most of Europe still calls heresy. A razor, a rib spread, the slick shine of organs mapped like foreign seas. The physician sketches as he cuts, noting blackened nodes you recognize from memories you'd trade a year of life to forget. The candle gutters, but the physician's quill moves like a hunting falcon, every stroke pinning new knowledge to the page. He murmurs observations in a mix of Latin and Venetian slang. Nodi neri in pulmone, sanguis inspissatus. You translate on the fly-black nodes in the lung, blood turned tar. The body on the slab is no longer a sinner in God's ledger. It is evidence, plain and stubborn. You steady the lantern while he prizes a flea from the corpse's collar. These, he says, dropping the speck into a glass vial of vinegar, travel faster than sin. A short laugh slips from him, half gallows, half giddy. He has no microscope, only deduction. Sailors fall ill after rats appear. Rats arrive by cargo. Cargo seeks coin. The chain is crude yet revolutionary. Commerce begets contagion. When the last stitch closes the sternum, he folds the blood-spattered sheet and hands you a copy of his notes. Carry this beyond the lagoon, he whispers. If cities red before they bury, fewer bells will toll. The pages are damp, ink running like estuary tributaries. But the idea is waterproof. Share data, not dogma. Outside, the night air tastes of salt and lilac. Across the channel, lanterns wink along the Fondaco dei Tedeschi, where merchants haggle even in plague years. You think of your earlier list, things we can control and feel it lengthen. Isolation, observation, dissemination. A sentry's horn slices the hush. From the black throat of the Adriatic, a galley glides toward the quarantine island. Sails furled, oars feathering quietly. It isn't on the registrino seal of prior inspection. No lantern pattern announcing provenance. Dockhands freeze. The water itself seems to stiffen. You can almost hear the physician's mental abacus clicking. Crew size, incubation span, risk to Venice, risk to everything beyond. Torches flare along the seawall. Orders volley in Venetian dialect too fast to pass. But urgency is a universal tongue. The unlisted ship drifts closer. Hull lacquered in pitch, so fresh it shines like obsidian under moonlight. No coughing reaches you, no groans only the slow, deliberate creak of timbers. That silence is worse than screams. It could mean a dead crew or a disciplined one. The physician squeezes your shoulder. Watch carefully, he murmurs. Policy is theory until tested by panic. Guards loosen crossbows. A harbour master lifts a speak, trumpet demanding the captain's oath. Nobody answers. A gull circles twice, then veers inland as if forewarned. The galley slides within bowshot, black water lapping its flanks like a dog that knows a secret. A lantern finally flickers on deck, revealing a single figure in oilskin. Face wrapped, posture rigid, arms raised in surrender or benediction, you can't tell. The physician beside you mutters, "One man cannot row a galley," and the words drop a stone in your gut. A cannonless warning booms a mallet, striking a bronze sheet on the seawall. Venice's version of a heartbeat. Dock hands haul a thick rope net from a crate of pitch. The city's newest invention, a floating barrier studded with iron hooks. They cast it between pylons, cinching the channel shut like a drawstring purse. Water sloshes, hooks glitter, trade itself is told to wait. Still, the figure does not speak. He lifts a cask the size of a drummer's barrel and rolls it toward the bow, guiding it with a funeral's care. Crossbows creak to full draw. Then thud, cask stops against the rail. Something in you recognizes ceremony. This is an offering. The harbour master roars through his trumpet. State your port and purpose. Silence, except for the small, wet gasp of tarred hemp twisting under strain. The physician scribbles on your parchment. Possible mute crew? Ritual quarantine ransom? He taps the page twice. Wants you to remember this. A breeze shifts, blowing from ship to shore. No carrion stench, no bloom of rot across the seawall. A dockhand whispers a prayer anyway. Superstition travels faster than scent. At last the figure moves again, lifting the cask atop the rail with a grunt you feel more than hear. Gravity claims it. The barrel splashes down, bobs, and drifts toward the barrier. Blue wax seals the bungum broken. The hooks snag the staves, halting the gift just shy of the wall. Orders volley. Don't touch it. Inspect. Burn it. Panic fractions into conflicting certainties. The physician's eyes shine. This is the crucible where hypothesis meets human fear. You grip the net's rope, leaning out as far as duty allows. Moonlight silvers the barrel's flank, revealing hastily carved letters. Salves. Latin for health, or salvation, or perhaps a cruel joke. The galley begins to back water, oars dipping in perfect silence, receding into the Adriatic like a confession it regrets. Behind you, soldiers debate torching the barrel in situ. The physician argues for retrieval. Knowledge floats inside that wood. His voice cracks. He knows curiosity can be fatal, yet history pivots on such gambles. No vote is taken, fear already rules. A pair of condemned criminals, promised remission, are shoved into a dinghy with pole hooks and a brazier of vinegar fumes. Their chains clink like distant bells as they row toward the bobbing cask. On shore, you, the physician, and 40 spectators hold one communal breath. The prisoners snag the barrel, lash it to the stern, and tow it back through a narrow gap the hooks have missed. When the dinghy touches stone, guards back away, swords drawn, as if steel can parry miasma. The physician steps forward anyway, gloved hands raised. Douse it first, he orders. Buckets of seawater hiss across heated oak. Steam spirals upward, carrying no odour, you can name only the scent of promise and peril intertwined. Iron chisels bite into the wax. A final crack, and the lid comes free. Top layer, folded oilcloth, remarkably dry. Inside it, parchment dozens of sheets, cramped with the same rushed script that marks the galley's transom. You glimpse sketches of rodents, human lymph nodes, even a crude map whose arteries trace trade routes out of Kaffa. The physician's pupils dilate data. Beneath the papers crouches a blown glass ampule, the length of a child's forearm, cork sealed with more blue wax. Amber liquid sloshes inside, thick as syrup. Something darker swims within flecks. Larvae. A guard retches into his helm. The physician whispers, "Vector in captivity." He motions for a coal brazier. Heat will force vapours out. If the stench is sweet, it's spirits. If foul, corruption. But before flame can kiss iron, a thin line appears along the ampulla crack, spidering from cork to belly. A single drop beads, breaks, and falls onto the barrel stave. Nothing happens. Then the wood darkens in a perfect circle, hissing like fat on a griddle. Men stagger back. You feel heat radiate, though no flame burns. The physician slams the lid, yelling for a tar cloth and a stone weight. "Submerge it outside the lagoon," he barks, voice raw. 2 rowers scramble to obey, dragging the barrel toward deeper water. The parchment remains in his grip. Ink already smears where sea mist licks the margins, but one phrase stays legible. Non contagio sed commercio. Not by contagion, but by commerce. The harbour master rounds on him. We burn it all. Tonight, The physician shakes his head. Burn the cure with the curse? Fools. He stuffs the sheaf inside his coat and turns to you. Meet me at the Scuola Vecchia before matins. Fog braids the alleys like damp rope as you slip toward the Scuola Vecchia. Venice sleeps behind shuttered windows, yet every lapping gondola oar sounds like a judge's gavel. 2 canals east. Bells mark Tersfar earlier than matins. The physician must have bribed a sacristan. Darkness is his ally tonight. You find him in the confraternity's abandoned library. A single tallow candle guarding an island of light. Shelves gape where ledgers once stood. Plague mortgages knowledge as readily as lives. He doesn't greet you. Quill clenched between teeth, he spreads the rescued parchments across a trestle table. Look, he murmurs, stabbing at a crude timeline. Dots circle Kaffa, leap to Constantinople, then radiate like cracks in ice toward every maritime republic. Whoever wrote this traced infection by week, not month. That means they suspected a hidden clock. You study the marginalia. Latin turns to vernacular Greek, then into Arabic script around the Caspian sketch. Beside each port the same tally. Rats drawn like black teardrops, then smaller ticks labelled pulicis. Fleas. The physician rubs his eyes. They saw the carriers, yet clergy scream about bad air. Another sheet, 4 columns headed DI, 1, 3, 7, 44. Beneath, dosage notes, vinegar vapours, isolation periods, finally quarantine of 40 days. Here is our hammer, he whispers, voice trembling with awe. Proof that absence, not prayer, stays the scourge. From his satchel, he pulls a miniature sandglass newly fitted with wax seals. We start trials tonight. Any sailor cleared after the 4th turning enters the city. The rest remain on Lazaretto Nuovo. If we can show the Senate... A crash downstairs silences him. Torch glow flickers under the door, accompanied by armoured boots and the wet cough of sea mist. Someone barks, "Search every ledger heretics hide among numbers." The physician shoves half the parchments into the stove's belly, but rescues one, folding it into a locket-sized square. He presses it into your palm. Memorize the trade routes, then burn this too. Knowledge that survives the pyre, survives the plague. Footsteps climb. Dust sifts from the rafters. He douses the candle. The room contracts into darkness so complete you feel its weight. The door latch lifts, wood yawning inward. A lantern blade cuts the black, stopping inches from your face. A soldier's silhouette looms, but his eyes snap first to the physician and to the parchment still smouldering in the grate. Steel flashes as the soldier kicks the door fully open. Sooty gusts billow from the stove, scattering half-burned flecks like fireflies. One lands on his mailed sleeve and fizzles. He squints through the haze. Book burners, eh? Confessing early, are we? The physician straightens, palms up. We cleanse, not condemn. That parchment bore the pox better ash than epidemic. He nods to the grate where ink still sizzles. The soldier's gaze drifts to you. His lower lip trembles, bluish in the lantern light. Sweat beads underneath his helmet despite the chill. He coughs once deep, rattling and wipes a scarlet thread with the back of a gauntlet. He tries to hide it, but you've already seen. The physician sees too. How long since the fever struck the garrison? He asks softly. A beat. The lantern dips. 2 nights, the soldier mutters. Captain says it's swamp ague. Swamps do not raise buboes, the physician replies, stepping closer. I carry knowledge that buys you breath. But arrest me, and your company dies ignorant. He gestures toward the sandglass on the table, wax seals still warm. Quarantina, 40 days. Prove its worth, and you may earn commendation. Even coin from the Senate. The soldier hesitates, eyes darting between you, the glass timer, and the hallway where more boots thump. His cough returns, wetter. Desperation beats training. He lowers his sword a hair. Show me. Swift as a magpie, the physician lifts the timer, flips it, and sets it down. Thin sand starts to hiss. Each turn marks 10 days of isolation beyond the lagoon. 4 turn safe entry. Less, and the pestilence multiplies. He snatches a curled ember from the hearth, drops it into a brass basin of vinegar, Steam rises sharp enough to sting. This, meanwhile, purges clothes and coin. Small acts, large lives. Boots halt at the threshold. Another guard peers in. The first soldier blocks the doorway. "All clear," he barks, voice cracking but firm. The newcomer grunts, retreats down the stairwell. Silence swells like a held breath. "Take your timer," the soldier whispers, "and leave before dawn trumpet. I never saw you." He turns, but the physician catches his arm, pressing a folded scrap into the man's gauntlet. "A map of safe anchorages. Memorize, then burn." The soldier nods, throat working, and slips away. You hear him cough twice more before the echoes fade. The library is now a coffin of smoke. Soot still pirouettes in the lantern's wake as the physician bolts the door. "We have until the bells of prime," he whispers. "After that, every pier will bristle with pikes." He sweeps the remaining folios into a canvas roll, careful to leave no telltale scrap on the planks. You stamp out embers with a damp cloak. Each hiss sounds like a shouted name. Outside, the call is hushed, but the city's sickness breathes around you, an occasional rasp through shutter slats, a low moan lost in canal fog. Moonlight paints the water pewter. Somewhere, a cat yowls at something unseen. You picture fleas abandoning its fur, homing in on warmer prey. At the foot of the bridge, the physician stops to study a crude mural. Saint Roch raising 2 fingers in benediction, his exposed thigh blotched black by an anonymous dauber. Someone has scrawled beneath it, "Non sufficit orare is not enough to pray." He taps the words. "Venice is almost ready to listen," he mutters, "if we live long enough to speak." You reach the deserted fondamente where fishing skiffs bob like coffins with oars. A single lantern burns on a piling, casting a golden aisle. The physician selects a flat-bottom sandalo, checks its bilge for rats, then hands you the folded chart. "Memorize these depth markers," he says. "We'll skirt the Arsenal patrols and land on Lazaretto Nuovo before sunrise." You kneel in the boat's bow, tracing inked arrows that twist through the lagoon's shallows. Some channels are crossed out in red plague ships anchored there, waiting for judgment. Others bear tiny circles, safe water wells, fresh enough to drink. As you commit each symbol to memory, the paper seems to warm, as though the city's fever pulses through the fibers. Mid-lagoon, the wind dies. Mist thickens into a wall, swallowing bell towers and guiding stars alike. The only sound is the hollow slap of waves against plank sand, an irregular patter inside the hull. You lift the sternboard. 2 rats glare back, whiskers trembling, eyes bright as garnets in the gloom. The physician's breath hitches. If they've come aboard, the fleas have too. He fishes for the vinegar basin, hands shaking. The sandglass lies beside it, half spensoned, whispering faster than your heartbeat. He looks to you. Decide. Turn back and lose the Senate, or press on and risk bringing the scourge to the one island meant to halt it. Behind you, somewhere beyond the fog, a watchtower torch flares, sweeping the water like a flaming pendulum. The torch cone widens across the mist, orange shards skating over the water. One more sweep and it will catch the glint of your oarlocks. The physician's whisper slices the panic. Forward, no second chance. You plant the oar and push. The sandalo glides, silent as a cat's shadow. Behind you, the watchtower bell clangs twice an alarm, or just the hour, impossible to know. The physician uncorks his vinegar basin and upends it into the bilge. A caustic cloud billows under your knees. The rats squeal, scramble up the ribs, then leap overboard with twin plops. Circles of moonlit ripples widen, then vanish. Fleas float, he mutters, swishing the remaining vinegar across the planks. They hate salt, but not enough. Keep moving. He flips the sandglass. Only a narrow fist of sand remains. Time is a throat closing. You steer by memory 3 strokes northeast, skim the weed bank, then hug the dark ribbon of deeper water, the map called the Thief's Vein. The fog thins just enough to reveal a jagged silhouette, the Quarantine Island, its low walls bristling with bare masts from moored hulks. A lantern winks twice from a pier prearranged signal, or a sentry lighting his pipe. The physician produces a small clappertoo walnut shells bound with twine. He snaps them once, twice, pauses, then once more. The distant light answers. 3 quick dips. Green fireflies of hope flicker in the physician's eyes. They're ready for the cargo, he breathes, patting the canvas roll of folios. Knowledge weighs nothing, yet sinks kingdoms. A sudden thud jars the hull. Shallow ground? You rake a pole through the water and hit something soft but solid. The pole comes up slick-tarred rope netting. A barricade. Someone has strung a submerged fence to keep boats exactly like yours from slipping through. Footsteps echo along the unseen pier. Voices, low and urgent, trade passwords you can't decipher. The physician risks a hissed shout. Dr. Varani, with the Senate's charter. Silence, then a clank of metal. The lantern on shore lifts, revealing 2 figures in plague robe speaks. Goggles, black capes. One raises a grappling hook, muscles tense to cast. The other pulls out a crossbow aimed squarely at your chest. Wind rattles the beak's leather. A voice, hollow as a tomb, calls across the water. Prove you are clean before 1 foot touches this island. The physician holds up the sandglass, its final grains slipping away. Our proof is time itself, he shouts, but the last grain falls as he speaks. Moonlit fog swirls between you and the beaked sentries. A ghostly moat no grappling hook can cross. The crossbow stays levelled. From beneath the leather beak issues the command. Show us your bilge. Show us your blood. Your pulse drums. Bilge first. You yank up a floor plank. Vinegar fumes billow out. 1 sentry sniffs the air like a hound behind a mask. Clean, but vinegar masks rot, he warns. Blood now. The physician strips off his right glove, exposing a forearm latticed with old leech scars. He produces a lancet, hesitates only a heartbeat, then rakes the steel across his skin. Scarlet beads well. He presses the cut with a fresh cloth and hurls the cloth onto the pier. It lands with a wet slap at the sentry's boots. The masked figures retreat 2 steps, confer in hushed Latin. You can almost taste their doubt. Everyone knows a plague-struck man bleeds dark, clotted, sluggish. The physician's blood ran bright as spilled wine. Still, suspicion clings. A second order. Now the passenger. Cold slides through your gut. You have no prepared trick, no spotless reputation. Months, amid corpses, have etched purple crescents beneath your eyes. Any tremor could be read as fever. You grip the lancet, but the physician's hand closes over yours. Not necessary, he calls to shore. The passenger is my witness, not my sample. Senate decree. Silence stretches. A gull cries overhead, its wings cleaving the mist like shears. Then the crossbow lowers a fraction. The grappling hook arcs through the air, lands in your bow with a thunk. Tie on, the sentry says, slowly. The physician knots the rope. As the island crew hauls you in, barnacles rasp along the hull, and the submerged net slides from beneath like a dead serpent. Closer now. You see the quarantine wall is painted with chalk symbol dates, names, tally marks that stop mid-stroke. Lanterns burn behind arrow slits, each a wary eye. Your keel kisses the pier. The masked men step back, leaving a deliberate gap-own boat's length of untreated air. Between you gapes an invisible frontier. This side, uncertain contagion. That side, the last refuge of the healthy, for now. The physician gathers his folios, gestures for you to stand but not disembark. We cross when ink becomes voice, he murmurs, and not before. From behind the wall a bell rings not the deep parish note of Venice, but a thin experimental chime, as if the island is testing its own heartbeat. Mist pearls cling to the rope as the sentries cinch the last knot, fixing your hull in place, yet keeping you marooned a breath short of shore. A brazier flares to life on the pier-powdered sulphur, tossed on hot colesit's yellow smoke rolling between you like a mote of alchemy. By order of the Venetian Senate, the taller beak intones, all new arrivals must submit their intent aloud. Ink alone deceives. The throat betrays nothing. The physician lifts his folio bundle as though cradling a newborn. Within these pages, he calls, lie mortality tables from Kaffa to Ragusa. Proof that the pestilence travels with fleas, not miasma. Open your walls to reason, and we may yet dam the tide. A hush. Somewhere beyond the rampart, a woman coughs, sharp and dry-own note, but it reverberates like a prophecy. The shorter sentry unlatches a wooden speaking tube, angles its bell toward your boat. "Read," he says. "Every syllable." The physician's voice steadies, rolling Latin statistics across the water. "Decem millia passuimt 1,000 passiveri port," repeats the pattern. You watch lantern light dance on his face, carving hollows beneath cheekbones that were already gaunt. Page after page turns. Parchment crackles like leaves in frost. Minutes stretch, measured only by the physician's breath and the gritty sigh of sand inside the hourglass you no longer see. Your own attention drifts to the brazier's rim. A shape wriggles there a flea, stunned by heat, trying to vault the sulphurous curtain. Tiny, almost weightless, yet it carries kingdoms in its gut. One hop and it could land on the rope, on your sleeve, on a sentry's exposed cuff. You fight the urge to swat. Any sudden move might look like guilt. On shore, more figures gather. A scribal monk with wax tablets, a matron clutching rosary beads polished flat by fear. A bare-headed boy no older than 12, eyes wide enough to drown in. The boy points at you, whispers something that makes the matron flinch. The physician reaches his final sheet. His voice falters, not from doubt but exhaustion. "Ergo, quarantine must last 1 et quadraginta dies, 41 days to sever the parasite's brood." He lowers the folio, palms trembling. "We have spoken. Choose life or choose ignorance." The taller beak confers with his partner, heads bent like twin ravens pecking secrets. Seconds tick. The brazier pops. A cinder arcs skyward, briefly a red star before it dies. The ravens straighten. 41 days, the taller declares, voice muffled by varnished leather. 41 nights. Break the chain, and St. Mark himself won't plead for you. A creak, then the gangplank hinges downward, stopping a pace short of your bowstill. No physical bridge, only a negotiable void. A brass censer is winched across on a rope, sloshing with vinegar and rosemary oil. "Bathe your hands, drench your boots," the shorter beak orders. Not one splinter of your craft touches our pier until the rite is done. You comply, fingers stinging in the acrid bath. The physician follows, rolling his sleeves. The cuts on his arm fizz like aloes in lye. Steam rises, carrying the scent of a forest funeral. Behind the wall, iron bolts throw back. Gates part just wide enough for a wheelbarrow, and out trundles the monk you spotted earlier. He bears a ledger so oversized it demands 2 straps and his entire spine. Wax seals dangle from its edge like tear-shaped pendulums. He stops at the gap, flips the clasp, presents a goose quill dipped in lampblack. "Names, origins, purpose," he drones, eyelids fluttering with the boredom of someone who has counted too many doomed arrivals. The physician signs first ink beads on parchment that already smells of mould. Your quill hesitates over purpose. What do you write when survival itself feels treasonous to the living? You settle on observation, aid. The monk sprinkles ash to set the line, but a gust lifts the ash back toward you, grey snowfall that melts on your tongue with a taste of pennies. From the corner of your eye you spot the boy again, now perched atop a crate for a better view. He grips the rosary matron's sleeve, pointing not at you this time, but beneath the plank where a rat the colour of night water noses the rope, whiskers trembling. 1 hop, 2, and the creature could board your vessel or theirs. The border is meaningless to it. You lock eyes with the boy. He shakes his head, lips parting in silent warning. The taller beak follows the gesture, reaches for his crossbow, then pauses, calculating trajectories, contagions, consequences. A bell rings once more, nearer, faster, the island's heartbeat accelerating. Lanterns multiply along the rampart, orange scales on a waking dragon. The gate stands half open, your signature still wet, the rat undecided. The rat freezes, whiskers quivering like tuning forks to an invisible cord. 1 heartbeat later, it bolts straight for the gangplank's shadow, where neither you nor the sentries can line up a clear shot. The taller beak curses in dialect and swings his crossbow, but the weapon's stock knocks the censer rope. Vinegar sluices out, splattering the planks in a sour rain. Steam erupts. The rat vanishes inside the cloud. Instinct overrules protocol. You drop to a knee, palm the boarding pole and drive its iron tip into the mist. Wood meets fur, a squill than nothing. When the fog thins, you find only an oily smear and a single twitching flea, legs kicking the air as if pedaling an unseen wheel. The boy gasps. Everyone else steps back, even the plague masks. Leather beaks, it turns out, do not deaden fear. The physician snaps open a tiny glass vial of pine tar and douses the insect. The flea crackles, curls, and turns to black grit. "Saint Roch, preserve us," whispers the monk, crossing himself so violently the quill snaps between his fingers. Ink spatters the ledger's Margintony comets on a paper sky already crowded with the names of the doomed. But dead vermin prove nothing. The shorter beak points at the smear. "If one climbed the rope," he says, 10 more hide in your hold." A verdict hangs in the night, heavier than any gate. The physician straightens, voice hoarse yet unyielding. "Then inspect our cargo under seal. We'll quarantine within these walls, but only if you accept the evidence your Senate demanded." A moment's hush. Even the brazier seems to lean in. At last the taller beak nods toward the monk. "Record a special enclosure. Scholars' quarters, 41 days, 0 contact with market or shrine." The monk hesitates, thumb worrying a wax seal as though it were a scab he dares not pick. "The ledger has no space for exceptions," he mutters. "Make space," the physician replies. "History will." Metal groans, the gate yawns wider, exhaling the scent of wet stone and tidal rot. Torches flare along a narrow jetty that winds toward a low barracks your future cell, dressed up as hospitality. Beyond it, the lanterns of Venice glitter, indifferent as constellations. You step forward, expecting the planks to moan, but the only sound is the boy's voice. "Sir?" He produces a clay figurine Saint Sebastian riddled with painted arrows. "For luck," he says, cheeks flushed with either charity or terror. You pocket the saint just as the gates slam shut behind you. Stone swallow calls echo down the passage as you follow the taller beak across the jetty. Sea spray beads on his oilcloth cloak, each droplet catching torchlight like a bead of glass pretty, until you remember salt is the only thing here that kills nothing. Behind you, the gate's iron tongue finds its groove. The clang keeps rhythm with your pulse. The barracks rises from the lagoon on pilings thick as oak trunks, roof sagging under moss and gull nests. A wooden placard reads, "Hospitium Scientificum." The letter's already peeling. Someone has tried to sweeten the air with juniper branches wedged between wall slats. They only manage to smell like sickness wearing perfume. Inside, straw pallets form 2 neat ranks, 19 in all. 15 are occupied. Faces turn. A Moorish sailor missing 2 fingers. A Dominican friar whose tonsure reveals crimson blotches. A woman in crimson silk pretending her cough is dust. Their eyes shine with the same mixture hope diluted by statistics. The monk produces pewter tokens stamped with Roman numerals. "Day 0, he says, handing you 12, and the physician the 30. When the tally reaches XLI, the gates open if your lungs still open first. Rules are recited. No crossing the chalk line at the door after sundown. Latrine visits in pairs, every cough reported to the apothecary in the south cell. Break any rule, and the lagoon will accept further evidence. No one asks what that means. The water outside already answers. You claim a pallet beside a cracked shutter. More juniper sprigs. More perfume of failure. The physician unwraps his satchel, laying out instruments like chess pieces, scalpel, spoon, glass alembic, a folded map of lymphatic pathways inked in rust brown. "If we're prisoners," he murmurs, "let us be dangerous ones." He pricks his own thumb, lets a bead of blood fall onto a square of linen, then dusts it with pulverized wormwood. The droplet spreads into a dark flower. "Control sample," he notes. You glimpse tremor in his wrist. Theory is brave until proof bleeds. A thump interrupts the Moorish sailor collapses, eyes rolling to white. 2 guards rush, but the friar lifts a hand. "No touch," he warns, voice papery. Instead, he begins a Latin prayer whose cadence tries to hypnotize the room into calm. You crouch near the sailor, careful to keep cloth over your mouth. His neck pulses wild, heat radiating like a forge. Under his jaw, a swelling the size of a quail egg rises before your eyes, skin stretched to purple sheen.